My mission on this with him was to do the artistic sculpting, the fabrication.
In the world of custom cars, Ian Rousell's name carries serious weight. He's a builder widely respected for turning raw metal into machines most people wouldn't even attempt. At his peak, he had it all. His show was thriving, his audience was growing, and every new build pushed him further ahead. From the outside, it looked like he had complete control. However, behind the scenes, deep cracks were already forming. The pressure of constant production, the isolation of the life he chose, and some personal decisions he hid from the public began to catch up with him. Without warning, Ian disappeared from television screens, and the real reason why is far more heartbreaking than most people realize. The rise of Ian Rousell. Ian Rousell has spent his entire life proving that expensive tools and formal training are not the same as real skill. He is one of the most gifted custom car builders working today, and his hands have created vehicles that leave professional fabricators shaking their heads in disbelief. He has won awards that most builders only dream of, been featured on magazine covers, and built a television career around doing things that supposedly cannot be done. But behind the scenes, away from the cameras and the custom car shows, Ian has carried struggles that most of his admirers never saw coming. And those struggles are only now coming to light. Ian Rousell was born on November 19, 1970, in Sunland, California, a quiet community in the northeastern part of Los Angeles. He grew up as an only child in Southern California, in an environment where cars weren't just transportation, they were part of everyday life. His father played a central role in shaping this early interest. A car enthusiast himself, he introduced Ian to the basics at a young age, not through formal lessons, but through hands-on time, by being around tools, engines, and mechanical work. As a child, Ian began learning how things fit together, how parts moved, and how machines responded when something changed. Over time, he went from being curious about understanding cars to being obsessed with changing them. And as he entered his early teens, everyone around him could see this passion. But while most beginners focus on repairs and fixing what's broken, Ian leaned toward modifying the cars. He experimented with design ideas, small alterations, and ways to make a vehicle look or function differently from how it started. He attended a local high school in Sunland, where he participated in sports, like many students his age. But athletics never became his long-term focus. His attention remained tied to building and fabrication, and by the time he reached the point where most people consider college, Ian made a decision that would define the direction of his life. He chose not to go, and instead committed fully to car building. At the age of 22, Ian took that commitment a step further. He began working as a custom car builder, turning what had been years of hands-on learning into a full-time pursuit. But rather than joining an established shop, he built his path independently, setting up his own garage in Southern California. From the beginning, his work stood out. His projects were often one-off builds, cars designed and constructed from scratch, based on a vision rather than the usual template. Clients didn't come to him for something familiar. They came because they wanted something different, something you couldn't find anywhere else. The way he worked was just as unique. Unlike most fabricators, Ian didn't rely much on blueprints or computer designs. Instead, he built things hands-on, shaping metal himself, making changes as he went, and figuring things out in real time. Over the years, this method became his signature, and soon enough, word began spreading about his skills. Each finished build added to his reputation. People began traveling from outside his immediate area, drawn by the originality of what he was creating. His vehicles didn't look like traditional hot rods or showroom customs. They carried a raw, handmade quality, something closer to functional art than polished perfection. In a world where most builds start to look the same, this difference is exactly what set Ian apart. He began to get noticed in the custom car scene, and more opportunities soon followed. In 2005, he showed up in a Las Vegas car show documentary, working on a rat rod build, one of the styles he'd later become known for. Around that same time, he was featured in Back from the Dead, and later Back from the Dead 2, projects that focused on unusual builds and creative fabrication. In 2011, he took part in Car Warriors, a competitive show that required builders to create vehicles under tight deadlines. It introduced him to a broader audience and showed how he worked under pressure, not just what he could build. By the late 2000s, Ian Rousell had become a recognized figure in the custom car world. His builds were original, his methods were unconventional, and his results spoke for themselves. It was this very combination of skill, independence, and a clear identity that eventually set the stage for what came next. Because not long after, a bigger opportunity came along, and it took his work beyond garages and put it in front of a global audience. The opportunity that changed everything. Ian Rousell had already built a strong name for himself inside the custom car world long before television got involved. His work spoke for him, and within that space, people understood exactly what he was capable of. But his big break came when he received an opportunity that introduced him to a much wider audience. In 2003, Ian was approached to produce a DVD that showcased his builds. The idea was simple. He was asked to capture what he was already doing and present it in a way that people outside his immediate circle could see. That project ended up doing more than just documenting his work. It introduced his style to industry figures who were looking for something different from the typical automotive content. What stood out immediately was how he worked. Ian built directly with his hands, adjusting as he went and solving problems in real time. This approach made for good television, especially because it gave viewers a direct look at the process instead of a polished summary of the result. Soon enough, Ian caught the attention of MAV-TV Motorsports Network. At the time, most automotive television programs followed the same familiar structure of large teams, staged deadlines, and a strong focus on tension between personalities. Ian's work, however, offered something else entirely. It was slower, more deliberate, and centered on the actual craft. The network decided to move forward with a deal that would turn his process into a full series. That project became Full Custom Garage, which officially premiered on March 7, 2014. The show was produced by Transmitter Productions and built around a concept that was straightforward but effective. Each episode focused on a single build. Ian worked primarily on his own, inside his garage, taking a concept from idea to completion. What stood out to most people was how carefully the show avoided distractions. There were no forced conflicts, no exaggerated deadlines, and no shifting attention away from the work itself. The camera stayed on the build. Viewers could follow each stage as it happened, watching decisions being made in real time. As the series gained traction, it began to build a consistent audience. The show did not rely on mainstream appeal. Instead, it found a dedicated following among people who understood the details of fabrication and those who were simply drawn to the originality of the builds. Eventually, the show's audience extended beyond the United States. Through Banijay rights, it was picked up internationally and introduced to audiences in multiple countries. That wider exposure brought in more demand for Ian's work and further cemented his place in the industry. The show also held strong ratings. It scored an 8.5 on a popular review website, which showed it had a loyal and engaged audience. But it didn't stop at the screen. With the help of his wife, Jaime, a merchandise line was launched, adding another side to the brand and giving fans a more direct connection to the show. By 2021, Full Custom Garage had completed over 69 episodes across 8 seasons. The consistency of production and the steady interest from viewers kept the series moving forward. In December 2023, Season 9 premiered on MotorTrend TV and its streaming platform, MotorTrend Plus, marking a shift in distribution and keeping the show aligned with changing viewing habits. Across those seasons, several builds stood out and became closely associated with the show. In the early days of the show, Ian made rat rods using scrap parts, showing how much he could do with very little. One build, the UFO trike, had a very unusual design that looked completely different from normal cars. There was also a custom Volkswagen Beetle build that kept changing as it progressed. Ian would start with one idea, then adjust it, rework parts of it, and sometimes completely change direction before settling on the final version. It showed that his builds were not fixed from the start. They evolved step by step. In the later seasons, builds like the Surfin' Safari Hot Rod brought in a more playful, beach-inspired look, adding a different kind of personality to the show. Then there was the early-style Hot Rod, which went in the opposite direction. Instead of being flashy or experimental, it focused on a more classic, old-school design. Even with that traditional look, you could still see Ian's style in how it was built and put together. As the show grew, more people around the world started noticing his work. He began getting clients from countries like Germany, Japan, and the Netherlands, and he even shipped cars to them. He also took on more projects. A spin-off show, Custom Cars, Lead Sleds Back from the Dead with Ian Rousell, was released on Amazon Prime. He continued appearing at events like the Spokane Speed and Custom Show, where he met fans and other builders. The show was not just for entertainment. It taught people that you can still build amazing things by hand, even without relying too much on computers. Over time, Ian became more widely known. He was no longer just a name in the custom car world. The show had made him popular in the wider automotive space too. But with that success came pressure and challenges. He had to keep up with filming schedules and constantly come up with new builds for every episode. This made his work more demanding, even if viewers did not see it. From the outside, everything still looked fine. The show kept going, and the audience kept growing. But behind the scenes, things were starting to get harder to manage, and soon enough, these struggles would become impossible to hide. The cracks that began to form. For the first few seasons, Full Custom Garage felt different from other car shows. Ian worked alone, and nothing felt rehearsed. But over time, things began to change. The early seasons were raw. Ian would walk into his garage, look at a pile of scrap metal, and just start working. The cameras followed. There was no plan and no script. Viewers watched him figure things out in real time. That was the appeal. But as the show got bigger, the network started pushing for more structure. They wanted each episode to follow a clear pattern. First, an introduction. Then a problem in the middle. Then a big reveal at the end. That format works for TV, but it did not match how Ian actually builds. Ian does not work in neat steps like that. He figures things out in the moment, not in a fixed plan. So while the show wanted everything mapped out ahead of time, Ian was used to making decisions on the spot. Unfortunately, this difference began to cause tension, and over time, the tension became more noticeable. The production team wanted scripts and clear outlines before filming, but Ian would push against it. Eventually, longtime viewers began to notice a change. There was less raw, hands-on building and more talking and explaining. Ian would pause to describe things instead of just doing them like before. It still worked as a show, but it did not feel as natural as it used to. The filming schedule only made things harder. During busy periods, Ian was working up to 60 hours a week. And this was not desk work. This was long hours in a hot garage, using welders and grinders. Because of the show, builds that used to take their time now had to be finished quickly to meet deadlines. Ian had always been very detail-focused. If something was not right, he would keep working on it until it was. But deadlines do not wait. They just want the job done. This pressure began affecting his safety too. Working under time pressure led to compromised shop practices. Some work was done faster than it should have been. And although Ian did not really speak publicly about it, the people around him could see he was pushing himself too hard. The show itself also started to change. Some moments that used to be natural began to feel planned. Client reactions felt less real. Visits from other builders were set up more for drama than for genuine collaboration. Even when people like Victor Cacho and Gene Winfield appeared, the conversations felt a bit rehearsed instead of natural. Fans noticed. Online, people started saying the show felt too produced. They missed the earlier version, where Ian would just build freely and let the work speak for itself. New viewers still enjoyed it, but longtime fans were starting to lose interest. By 2022 and 2023, there were even rumors that the show might be canceled. Nothing was confirmed, but the rumors alone showed that something felt off. Some fans shared emotional reactions, not because the show was bad, but because it felt like Ian was losing what made him different. They had followed him for years because of his unique style, and now it seemed like he was being pushed into a standard TV format. What most people did not see was that behind the scenes, Ian was dealing with more than just the show. The changes were visible on screen, but what he was going through personally was not. The pressure kept building, and eventually, it became too much to handle alone. The struggles Ian hid from the public. While fans watched Ian build cars on television, his life away from the cameras was very different. The show made him look successful and comfortable, and he was both of those things in some ways. But the life he chose behind the scenes came with challenges that most viewers never knew about. In 2019, Ian married a woman named Jaime. They had been together for more than 15 years before they finally got married, and the ceremony took place in the Mojave Desert. That location was not random. The desert had become home for Ian, and Jaime shared his love for the open space and the quiet. She had a background in nursing, with a bachelor's degree from Chamberlain University, and she also worked as a health and holistic coach. She helped Ian with his merchandise line and kept him connected to fans, but her main role was being his partner in a life that most people would find too hard. The house they lived in was modest. It had 922 square feet, 3 bedrooms, and 1 bathroom. The property sat on 2.5 acres of land, which gave Ian plenty of room to work. He could park projects outside. He could make noise without bothering neighbors. He could even spread out in a way that would never be possible in a city. But the house itself was small, especially for a man who had been on television for years and could have afforded something much larger. The reason Ian chose the Mojave Desert was simple. He wanted privacy, open space, and creative inspiration. He did not want to live in Los Angeles or any other big city. He wanted to wake up every morning and see nothing but sky and dirt, and maybe a few juniper trees. That kind of life has benefits, but it also has serious drawbacks. The climate in the Mojave Desert is brutal. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 100 degrees, and the heat bakes everything it touches. Winter nights can drop below freezing, and the temperature swings from day to night are extreme. Dust storms roll through without warning, covering everything in a fine layer of grit that gets into tools, engines, and lungs. Working in those conditions is not just uncomfortable. It is physically dangerous if a person is not careful. Ian spent long hours outside in that heat, welding and grinding and shaping metal. The physical toll of that work, combined with the harsh environment, added up over time. He did not complain about it on social media or in interviews, but the body remembers what the mind tries to ignore. The isolation he faced was another challenge. Living far from urban centers meant that simple things, like going to a grocery store or seeing a doctor, required long drives. Social interaction was limited. Ian and Jaime had each other, but they did not have the casual contact with neighbors or friends that most people take for granted. Some people enjoy that kind of solitude, but others find it crushing. Their home also doubled as a workshop, which meant the line between personal life and professional life was always blurry. Ian could not leave work at the office because the office was his backyard. There was no commute to clear his head. There was no closing time when he had to stop thinking about a build. The work was always there, and the pressure to keep producing content for the show and for YouTube did not go away. Financially, the choice to live in a modest desert home reflected Ian's priorities. He was not interested in luxury or celebrity status. He wanted creative independence, and he was willing to trade a big house and a fancy lifestyle for the freedom to build whatever he wanted. But that choice came with risk. Television income is not guaranteed. Shows get canceled, and networks change their minds. Living simply helped Ian manage that uncertainty, but it did not eliminate it. Ian and Jaime also made a conscious decision not to have children. They dedicated their time and energy to building the full custom garage brand and the lifestyle that came with it. That choice allowed Ian to focus completely on his work, but it also meant that he and Jaime were each other's only support system. There were no kids to distract them or lighten the mood after a hard day. It was just the two of them, the desert, and the cars. Fans saw the finished builds and the television persona. They did not see Ian waking up at dawn to beat the heat. They did not see the dust storms ruining a day of work. They did not see the quiet evenings when there was nothing to do but sit and wonder if all of it was worth it. These struggles stayed hidden for years, but eventually they became too big to ignore. And when the truth finally came out, even Ian's most loyal fans had to ask themselves a hard question. Would the man who could build anything from scrap metal ever build another car again? Where is Ian Rousell now? After nearly a decade of filming Full Custom Garage, the show quietly reached what seems to be its final stretch in early 2024. The last 6 episodes aired between December 2023 and January 2024 on Motor Trend TV and Motor Trend Plus. The final episode, titled Early Style Hot Rod, was released on January 24th. In that episode, Ian built a traditional Model A hot rod as a tribute to the early pioneers of hot rodding. It was a simple, classic build that focused on the roots of car culture, which made it feel more meaningful in hindsight. What stood out the most was how quiet everything was. The episode came and went without any official statement from the network. Ian himself did not make a farewell post or announcement either. The show had been on the air for 9 seasons, starting back in 2014 on MAV-TV, before eventually moving to Motor Trend. Along the way, Ian had filmed 69 episodes that showcased his unique ability to turn scrap metal into rolling works of art. But when the final episode aired, the silence that followed was noticeable. Ian did not post a goodbye video or write a heartfelt message to fans. He just kept working, and that quiet response told people everything they needed to know about where his priorities stood. Ian has since shifted his focus almost entirely to YouTube, where his channel, Full Custom Ian, has become the new home for his work. The channel has over 240,000 subscribers and more than 600 videos. And unlike the television show, there are no network executives telling him what to build or how to act. His wife Jaime handles the filming and merchandise side of things, which allows Ian to do what he does best without worrying about the business end. The channel description says that after 9 years on television, Ian now wants to bring the behind-the-scenes experience to his devoted fan base. And that is exactly what he has been doing. The builds he is working on now are as creative as anything from the show. There is a 1968 VW Beetle inspired by Le Mans endurance racing, a custom fender project he calls Little Jewel, and hints of a spacecraft-themed build that fits with his UFO-inspired branding. In a podcast interview from late 2024, Ian talked about how he continues to work without following traditional rules, using his imagination and resourcefulness to turn everyday materials into unique automotive creations. He described himself as a VW enthusiast through and through, and the podcast host noted that Ian deserves the support of the community because he builds without fear of judgment. The rumors about retirement started circulating almost as soon as the television show ended, but Ian has never said he wants to stop building cars. He continues to post weekly videos and live question and answer sessions from his desert shop in Arizona, where he moved after leaving the Mojave. The speculation came from fans who assumed that when the cameras stopped rolling, Ian would stop working too. That assumption has proven to be wrong. He is still welding, still grinding, still shaping metal with his bare hands, and still proving that expensive tools and formal training are not the same as real skill. What makes the YouTube channel different from the television show is the lack of interference. On television, Ian had to follow a formula. The builds needed to fit into a certain time frame, and the episodes needed to follow a predictable arc. On YouTube, none of that applies. He can take as long as he wants on a project. He can abandon a build halfway through if it is not working. He can talk as much or as little as he feels like. The channel description says he demonstrates that one can use pretty much anything in the shop to bring a car build to life. And that freedom is exactly what was being squeezed out of the television show in its later seasons. A possible return to television remains an open question. Motor Trend has not officially canceled Full Custom Garage, but they have not announced any plans for a new season either. The door is not completely closed, but Ian has hinted that he prefers the independence he has now. A return to mainstream television would likely require him to give up some of the creative control he has fought for his entire career, and that is not a trade he seems willing to make. As of now, Ian Rousell lives in the desert with his wife Jaime and works out of his shop the same way he always has. He does not have a television crew following him around, and he does not seem to miss it. The fans who discovered him on Full Custom Garage can still find him on YouTube, still building, still creating, still doing exactly what he has always done. He did not retire. He did not disappear. He just stopped performing for a network and started building for himself again. And for a man who started his career in a small way, that might be the best ending he could have asked for. Would you like to see Ian Rousell make a big comeback to television? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.